and welcome to another episode of Sinews of War. In the previous episode, we faced off against the last army of Greece. Unfortunately for them, they were unable to do any damage to us, although we did a lot of damage to ourselves. We then moved a reinforcement army to help out Costa in India, so now we have two armies to press against Mysore. We might be able to start making some progress. On the other side of the world, Cortland had the Moroccan capital under siege, and they decided to sally to try and decide this in one battle. Unfortunately for them, they were wiped out in this engagement, meaning that Morocco as a faction are now destroyed, which conveniently destroys their shipping in the East Indies as well. We were finally able to capture Istanbul by just overwhelming it with additional forces in order to resolving the besieged defenders, meaning we now have the Ottomans really strangled, and to make things even worse, the West India Company forces led by Voorhees have just landed near Jerusalem, ready to make rear attacks on the Ottoman positions. Now let's continue. Affairs in England are smooth, yet not for any achievements on my part, for I barely have time to attend to my duties. On some days it is hourly that I receive missives from all over the Empire, all in their own way asking for the same thing: action. It has become plain for all to see that the bickering of the stadtholders never produces results, and as such, the diseases that ail our people both near and far go untreated. Even if the honourable gentlemen of the States General could agree with each other, they would still be forced to kowtow to the whims of the lower orders, people who see nothing of the world past the end of their own outstretched hands on the breadlines. To control a nation that spans the world, there must be someone with worldly knowledge at the helm, and not some people, someone. The easiest way to act of one mind is for only one mind to matter. History proves that, sure enough. So here we are atop a powder keg of unrest, suppressed only by the fact that those who hold some mote of power fear losing it, and do not recognise how in truth, if they rose up, they would have the support of all the giants of industry, trade, law, and I might add the King of the British Empire. It is no longer an issue of ideology, gentlemen, simply one of logistics. Arms must be quietly distributed, word must be passed of a chosen date, and the endorsement of the cause must be loud enough for all to know its size, yet discreet enough that it be hidden below the clamour of childish bickering in the States General. That is what we must scheme today, and scheme well we must, for the fate of our empires both will depend on its success. So Jerusalem under threat from the sneaky advance of the West India Company forces, and the rest of the Ottomans' back lines under threat as well, although we know they're bankrupt, so they may not actually be worth anything, so taking them might not even do anything to the strength of their nation. But anyway, on the front lines, Voss advances to defeat this random unit of cavalry, which stands and fights, and although defeated, actually kills more of my men than we killed of theirs, so a little bit annoying. But anyway, there's no more movement points this turn, so we'll wait and see what the Ottomans do. And as Voss gains yet more accolades, I thought we'd have a look at the actual traits he has. You can see he basically has every positive trait you can get as a general. His command stars through the roof: aggressive attacker, general of infantry, a superior general, courageous leader, general of cav, a grasp of the shovel, which he just got, which increases his abilities in a siege, and an aide-de-camp, which increases his command skill as well. Guidon, by comparison, not really much. He's mentioned in dispatches, which gives his men more morale, and he has this patriotic sword, which actually gives +2 morale, which is pretty good. He got that for taking Istanbul, so it was a gift from the stadtholders, I guess, for his achievements. Now, over in India, we've got our forces ready to start advancing on Mysore once again. What I really wanted to do was advance around this force on the border and go and attack the capital right away, but you can see from the movement ranges that that's not going to be possible to do in one turn. It would probably just make them bring all their forces into attack at once. So actually it's going to be more efficient to take on this army on the border first and then move on. So we've got two armies versus their one, but they still have a slight advantage on the balance bar apparently. Their troops are just that good, it seems. And of course we can't use our second army in the battle because we already have 20 in the first army, meaning we have to actually get destroyed in order to bring in the second army. It's really just a reserve. So the battle begins with our artillery firing in the direction of the enemy, and handily for us, the enemy had deployed their elephants on the front of their line, so the artillery shots actually take down a few of those easy to target beasts. So that's a good start. Their general is going to rush to the back of the map as a result of this, not wanting to stay under that artillery fire. The enemy's artillery has set up in a defended position. They're going to make it really hard for me to take it out with counter-artillery. And you can see I'm experimenting with the tactic of putting the artillery in the line infantry line. We can switch them to canister shot when the enemy get close, so I can use them basically as a very powerful but very slowly reloading line infantry unit. I'm going to see how that works. Handily for me, the enemy put some of their cavalry on top of their artillery defences, and that actually stops the artillery from firing because they now can't see anything. So that was kind of them. It allows me to just get free shots off on them without taking any return fire. So we're going to kill a load of enemies as they advance, and advance they will because we have the artillery advantage even though we are the attacker here. So they're going to run right across the map, right towards my lines, which is nice because I'm actually slightly uphill where I'm standing. On their left flank they have a lot of melee infantry. They generally have a much more powerful left flank than I have on my right, so this is the worrisome part. These warriors here, armed with sword and shield, surely going to do damage. We've had a lot of trouble dealing with melee units so far in the campaign, and there's no reason to expect this battle to be any different. Now on the extreme right we have a little cavalry scuffle as the enemy's lancers find my native Indian lancers. I wanted to bring these company cavalry to go around and rear flank the enemy, but they got caught in the melee and ended up just grinding through it, but that's not really a big deal. And on the left flank, where I've got most of my cavalry, the enemy sent some infantry units to try and engage them, and of course that is not going to work whatsoever. So the cuirassiers just slash into the front of those dervishes, and then they get rear attacked by loads of company cav, so we're going to absolutely obliterate those infantry there. Meanwhile, the main attack is starting, and they're leading with horse archers, which is a curious choice. So they're going to ride up in front of the line and start trying to fire arrows at me, but it's not going to go well, of course, because the return fire easily cutting them down. They're trying to get out of the way, as you can see, but now in comes the line infantry. And as you can probably guess, the line infantry do not look like they are going to go in for a line battle, do they? They are literally just running right up the hill at us. So it's another one of these battles where all the ranged units just charge into melee, meaning extreme losses on both sides, very likely, but not much we can do about that. We've got our back right up against the edge of the map, so we can't exactly move out of the way right now. I can form a square which slightly improves our abilities, especially with the cav going into that battle, so that may help. On the far right of the line, I've got the grenadiers, my best unit for melee, so that's handy since the enemy are focusing most of their melee troops in this area. To start with, going to get some volleys off, but once these warriors get in, it's going to start getting bloody. Steady now, steady. I hadn't taken these men for savages. They'd rather beat us about the head with those muskets. Probably don't even know how to load them. Ease off, little boys, we're very close to the line here. Do you think the cavalry can see this? If they don't help, I'll have them all on nooses. More of them coming in. Look, the men keep peering back here, scoping out their escape routes, no doubt. You men, hold the line as ordered! Break them break them, I say! Right, now I think we should move up there a little, get away from all this noise and try and see what's going on. Let's steer clear of the right side, shall we? Awful lot of dust being kicked up over there. No sense risking it if we don't have to. The enemy are committing hard to this strategy with their line infantry just trotting up to engage with mine in a straight melee, so that's their choice, and probably a good choice because their line infantry are actually quite good in melee. I don't know if they're better than ours though, and we certainly have the superior position. These unengaged units are going to be able to fire into the flanks of the enemy blobs because they're focusing on certain parts of the line so much. And the same is true for these cannons, who I've put onto canister shot, but I couldn't really tell if it was doing anything. Looking really closely at the footage, it looks like the shots are just flying over the heads of these guys, so I don't know if canister shot works as intended. There we saw some men go down, though I'm not sure if that was actually a line infantry volley that did that damage. But anyway, the enemy now starting to focus on other units along the line, bringing these guys over to start getting more and more of my troops into melee. They were able to break through essentially on my center right with so many troops, as you can see, just finishing off the last of the men defending this position, and now free to fold along and hit more units further down the line. These guys even going right behind the line to engage the next unit along. On the far right, the Grenadiers are managing to hold their ground. They are better in melee than the average line infantry unit, but they've still got lots of opponents to get through, so it's not over for them yet. The destruction of my centre right means reinforcements are starting to come onto the field now, so we've got some extra units to play with, which is really going to help out. They started putting a lot of pressure on my centre, charging these units towards it, as you can see, and I folded one of my units around so that we could stop them from reaching the position where the guns were. The guns now reprioritised to fire forwards with regular shot at more distant units, since the canister shot wasn't having much of an effect, taking fire themselves from the enemy's artillery, but holding on. These units here are actually engaging in a line battle, so there's one tiny bit of line battling going on right on the left end of the line. But the main action for me, what I'm mainly doing in terms of controlling the army, is the cavalry, who are marauding around behind the enemy's lines, killing routing units and destroying any units who come out of the battle to engage with them. The enemy's generals sneaking away from the fight there. They took a lot of damage from artillery fire and never actually got close to our lines, so that was great. Now the Grenadiers have cleared things up on the right side, and that's going to be extremely useful as they push the enemy back. But the enemy have put this unit behind our lines in cover, now able to fire into the back of the Grenadiers as they chase these enemy units away. The Grenadiers currently running towards the centre to support it, not realising they're being shot to death. In the centre, things starting to even out. The enemy's losses are growing so large just because they're taking losses every time they try and get through one of my units that they're actually starting to break, and here you can see a unit routing right towards the artillery. That artillery has been firing into the back of them the whole time, probably persuading them to rout even sooner. And as they go, my cannons fire canister shot into my own men, as you can see here, and it actually doesn't do any damage, so I don't know what's up with canister shot, or whether it just doesn't work like so many things in the game, but not very impressed with it so far. But as you can see, the centre now is actually under our control once again. I've brought the left over since it was victorious in its line battle, the right victorious joining it as well, meaning we've secured our lines, and it's really just a battle outside of the main position now, where all these enemy units are caught up with cavalry. Just going to grind them down and easily defeat them with those cav with the superior melee stats. The last of their units was these warriors who was charging right across the front of the line, but now it's so overwhelmed by my infantry that it actually routed before it fought, which was great because they would have taken loads of our men with us if they had fought, and we are going to chase them as far as possible. We absolutely don't want them to come back from routing. This unit at the back, the ones who were in cover, were actually causing me some trouble because although I thought, well, I'll just have them killed by sending in all my units to fight them in melee, it didn't really work. The lancers I sent in to take them out got almost wiped out, and the line infantry supporting them were having a really hard time as well. The sepoys that came in as reinforcements are now going to charge in to help out with that though, and this is going to be the move that decides it finally, because the arrival of this fresh unit will allow us to finish off the enemy, although they did do a lot of damage to our men and more than I expected. These musketeers always taking me by surprise in melee. They're just surprisingly good. So finally the battle coming to an end. One unit coming back from routing extended the battle because I had to kill them again, but of course this time they're just running up to get shot by the more orderly lines of infantry, so no chance for them, and the battle now comes to an end. The whole time I was fighting it, it seemed a little bit touch and go and that I was taking a lot of damage, but from the results here, you can see the enemy took extreme losses. Every time they made those melee attacks, our men were really putting up a good show and killing loads of the enemy despite also being taken down themselves. So as a result, the enemy's losses are absolutely crippling. You can see these grenadiers doing a great job, killing 4 for every man they lost, and the cavalry of course doing a great job as well, marauding through the enemy's ranks. So this is a pretty decisive result. We lost about a third of our forces, but the enemy lost like 80-90% of their forces, although they do of course have another army, so this is only one part of the Mysore force, and the survivors going to fall back. And actually they fall back into a hidden position, so they just disappear off the map, which is unfortunate because now they could ambush us if we actually advanced up there. But anyway, what we're going to do right now is just stay relatively near to our current position. I could advance closer to Mysore than I'm going to, but I thought I might as well stay away from it just to reduce the chance of the enemy ganging up on me so much. These trees on the right are actually impassable, so I have to just go and sit on this road here, which I'm going to do. So with both armies ready to go, we'll have to have another decisive battle in the next turn in order to sort that out. But as I go into the next turn, Poland, Lithuania decide they're going to declare war on me, and this is extremely inconvenient, especially with all my forces on the Ottoman front and virtually nothing anywhere else in Europe. That means they're going to be absolutely free to storm all the territories that I took from the Ottomans. Luckily though, all of my allies actually join in and Poland loses most of their allies, so that's fantastic. I guess all these guys are really dependent on my trade, so they don't want to piss me off. Now Poland, for some reason, appear to just fall back across the board as the war starts. They had forces on my border. I thought I was going to be stormed, but actually they seem to unilaterally run away, so I don't know what's up with that. Before we can go and find out any more, Mysore are on the move, and it's giving us the chance to intercept their army here. The problem with this idea is that all of their other forces are coming in as reinforcement armies, meaning basically it's asking me, do I want to just fight a massive decisive battle against everything and have my weakened army be leading the attack? Now the answer to that, in my mind, was no, even though it probably would be possible to win that battle. I thought we might as well not, and they actually kept advancing and then got intercepted again by my second army. So it offers me a similar situation, but with one fewer enemy army getting involved, so slightly easier. The balance but actually in my favour a little bit. But the interesting thing for me was that because my backup army is now the first force on our side, it means we won't have all our damaged units fighting on the front line, so I thought I might actually give this one a go.
Ordularım nerede? Cizyeler neden defne sandıklarımızı doldurmuyor artık? Benim devletime ne hale getirdiniz? Ben sizi teker teker boynunuza kadar çöle gömeceğim ve hak ettiğiniz kötü muameleleri bir ölüme kavuşturacağım. Eğer yalnız aranızda vatan haini ve beceriksiz olmayan bir danışman bana iyi bir nasihat vermezse ben bundan vazgeçerim. Peki, bekliyorum, yok mu aranızda ağzını açmak isteyen? Ama bekleyin, sizin düşünceleriniz bildirilmişti bana zaten. Siz benden daha da bilgili, daha da biçimli değilsiniz. Siz barış pazarlığı tercih ediyorsunuz. Sırf kendinizi Hollandalılardan korumak nedeniyle muhteşem devletimizin yok edilmesini istiyorsunuz. Lanet olsun! Savaş içinde bulunmamış olsaydık bu gizlediğiniz düşünceleriniz için ben sizi idam ederdim. Ben sizin padişahım ve cahil değilim. Sarayımın nasihatını bilmemekten gelmeyeceğim. Hadi bakalım, kim fikrini bildirmeye hazırdır? Kiminizde cesaret var beni şu alçak barış pazarlığı ikna etmeye?
The first thing I'm going to do in this battle is actually move backwards, because there's a set of walls running along the back of my deployment zone, so if we get into a ranged fight I'm going to want to use those to make it much easier. I've got cavalry here hidden in these forests on my left flank, and coming to join them will be reinforcements. Since this first army wasn't 20 units, we get parts of Costa's army coming in to help, mainly the cavalry because they're at the front of the unit stacks, and some infantry will be coming in later as well. The enemy also have reinforcements, so as they form up, they're also going to get all these guys streaming onto the field to help them, including these elephants and plenty more cav of their own. I think they brought some infantry in the first wave as well, and as we kill enemies, more of them are going to be showing up as reinforcements because they have quite a lot. Now by the time I've got all my cavalry together here on the left, I had absolutely loads, so you can see I've made this giant cav death line. I think it's about 6 different cavalry companies there, facing off against the enemy's cavalry who are advancing right towards them, but we have a giant numerical advantage, and I think my men are a little bit stronger in melee anyway, especially since some of these enemy units are technically horse archers. So we are going to meet their charge as they come in, and they're also making another charge right on the other side of the line, a really tiny charge, and I actually didn't even do anything about this because I thought my line infantry would cut down this small group of 30 riders, but apparently they didn't. They barely did any damage to them at all actually, so they managed to reach the line and started disrupting things. I have to get those guns out of the way because I had them in front of the line there. So that's annoying. I'm going to have to pull off a cavalry unit from my right flank attack group to come back and wipe those guys out quickly, but not a huge deal. They've got another unit running up and down in front of the line, as the AI really loves to do these days, so that's fine by me. We're really lowering their morale by just taking pot shots at them. And back on the left, a big cavalry engagement starting to begin now as both sides just pile in against each other. I should win that battle, especially as these extra companies come in as reinforcements. Loads of Indian lancers going to apply their charge bonus to the enemy here. Lovely jubbly. So there's a tiny engagement going on right on the extreme left, and this is a little bit more fair. I think it's just one of mine. It's 2 of mine, sorry, against 1 of theirs, so it's not that fair. So we are still going to win out, and winning here will of course allow us to go around the back of the enemy's army if we wish it, and that should be terribly useful. Now the main fight's starting now. Units start to engage on the front line. We've cleared up those riders on the far right, but unfortunately my cannoneers accidentally dropped the guns and ran after them. I think it's because they had dropped the guns due to technically being in melee, and then I accidentally gave them an attack order, not realizing they weren't on the guns, and now they're just going to run off into the battlefield, and they actually get killed without me noticing until right at the end of the battle. A big cavalry engagement starting there on the right side as the company cav engage with the enemy, and the enemy also just slamming their cav right through the centre, disrupting my formation set up on the walls here, and forming a square at the last second to receive this one, but the enemy, as they jump over the wall, also jump over the front ranks of the square, so they immediately get inside. Didn't really stop the enemy's advance at all, but at least we're still going to have a combat bonus and may be able to face them there. The square next door will be able to provide supporting fire, and I've got a reserve unit waiting right behind. So the enemy's cavalry attacks probably not going to be terribly effective, but if they follow it up with infantry attacks and go into melee like they tend to do, that could be deadly. We can't tell what they're doing right now because they're just walking up and down the line. Their elephants certainly are going to melee, as you can see. They've powered them in, and now they're going to start slashing through these grenadiers. So as you can see, they just go absolutely flying. They're just knocking us down like bowling pins. No mercy from these elephants. We really don't have much chance against them fighting in a straight melee. But luckily we do have the squares nearby who are firing on the elephants. And that's quite quickly going to take them down, especially because we're at really close range. So the grenadiers are effectively acting as a distraction so the elephants can be killed. And you can see many of them falling now. It's not actually going to be all that hard to kill all of these elephants slowly but surely, just because once they're bogged down, they're a very easy target, and my native Indian cav here slamming in to kill the enemy's grenadiers and distract those elephants yet further. This square, a little bit awkwardly standing inside the wall, probably needs to get reset because they're now engaging in a line battle with some enemy line units, which is a rarity. Nice to actually see some ranged combat going on in these battles since we'll have an advantage. The dervishes have attacked on my right flank, joining the big cavalry brawl. And actually both sides here are taking massive losses. A lot of my company cav are dead. I think I've already lost one of the companies of company cav, and I'm trying to actually get them out of that fight, but they couldn't leave because the enemy were just chasing them. So eventually those company cav are going to be defeated, but they will take the enemy with them. So a little bit later on, we managed to kill one of the two enemy generals at the back of the map using my cavalry death blob, which has gone around after winning on the left to attack the enemy's rear, and their general was just hanging out amongst these musketeers on their own. So easy to kill. They've got some musketeers on the flank there firing right into my cavalry blob, but I'm just ignoring it. I'm basically using this set of 5 or 6 cavalry companies to just hit one after the other individual enemy units and destroy them. The enemy's general on the elephants also killed by the sustained musket fire, and as they escaped from that battle, more musket fire was able to bring down yet more of them, including the general himself right at the end there. So this is good news. Both of the enemy's leaders are now gone, and the line itself starting to stabilise. The enemy's cav have been rebuffed, and the enemy's line infantry aren't just charging in. So now the investment of taking these walls should really pay off in this ranged battle.
Get everyone up, they're running! Loaded muskets, pass them up, come on quick! If you're wounded, take the empty weapons and get them loaded. Hold them up when they're ready. I want rapid fire on those beasts. Every elephant that escapes is an elephant we fight again. You all heard the general boasting about his big game hunting trips, haven't you? Well, this is your chance to outdo him, and bag an oversized saddle weaved in gold while you're at it. Where are those damn sepoys? I asked them to bring the water up and they've just disappeared. It's Costa got them rubbing his feet. Hey you, can you walk? Good. Go down the line and find the general. We need water and ammo now. And if he's not somewhere on the front line, he'll answer for it.
So the battle is entering a ranged phase in which I'm going to have these walls to protect me. The enemy blasting at me with only 1 or 2 units at a time, because much of their infantry was coming in as reinforcements. Then they weren't waiting for each other and were just coming in to fight and then die just before the next enemy unit came up. So this actually made things extra easy, on top of the fact that we had the walls. The walls do mean we can't use fire by rank, but I think it's worth slowing things down since we're going to take basically no casualties thanks to those walls, so willing to allow that. The cavalry death blob has now come back onto my left flank to rest right now. There's not that many targets left anyway, and with enemy reinforcements coming in, it's annoying because they keep getting rear attacked. There was this one unit though, hiding in the trees, not hiding in terms of the game's logic, but hiding in that I couldn't see it as the player because the trees are in the way and it's hard to see anything in these weird misty days. So my men taking casualties there without me noticing. Half of the cavalry death blob has gone off to go and kill the enemy's artillery at the back of the map, so that's going to be a nice takedown. More enemy infantry piling onto the front line. The guys who were here earlier have long since gone, but new units coming in to replace them, and just going to take fire from my men who are still really healthy, holding their positions easily. I even moved up on the right flank with 2 units to come off the walls and just stand on the edge of the enemy's formation to blast into their flanks. This unit of enemy troops decided it was very worried about my cavalry, so it was just going to sit in a square in the middle of the battlefield and do nothing. But meanwhile, those cavalry have discovered that they're being sniped at from these trees and have rushed in, found that enemy unit, and now they are going to be overpowered by 3 or 4 cavalry units just attacking them all at once. The rest of the cavalry went off to find the enemy's artillery, have been successful, so there go the crews, and we also encountered a few routing units of enemy cav who we took out as well. So the enemy's back line's now under our control, just a matter of finishing off their infantry in the centre. Now this unit moved right up to my lines and then turned to fire sideways along the line, not realising of course that we have this unit right behind them who I've taken off the wall so they can fire by rank into the rear of that enemy unit. So they're about to get a very loud surprise. We blast them right into the back and they realise they're in huge trouble and they're going to start running, taking more fire as they go. So at this stage, although it's hard to tell, there's 1 or 2 enemy units about the battlefield here and there that are still active, so we just need to hunt them down and finish them off, and the cavalry are perfect for that. So there goes one of their last units running off the field. That's a victory. Now this results screen actually claims that things weren't all that good. You can see that our enemies killed is over 2,000, but the enemy's losses is only 1,500. It's because for some reason these results don't include the impact of reinforcements. So basically we have a result that doesn't make any sense. So let's switch over to the campaign footage where you can see it's a bit nicer for us. We killed 3 times the amount that we lost. The enemy's army now really damaged and our army still sort of healthy. We've probably still got 1 stack's worth of troops altogether, which should be enough to push on to take their settlement. The Chorus is doing really well there, and some Vok infantry taking big casualties. That's probably one of the units that was taken down by a cavalry charge, explaining why they didn't get many kills in return. But anyway, the Mysore forces fall back and then immediately ask for peace. And of course, I'm never going to accept this, considering the cost I've already put out to try and invade Mysore. If they're not going to offer anything in return for peace, then that just doesn't make any sense. So we'll go on to fight them in the next episode. A nice victory for the East India Company. And another victory is that we've taken 2 of the trade nodes in the East Indies now, taken them back at last. So we're actually starting to make some decent money off this whole venture, which is very nice. So good to know. We'll probably try and recruit more ships to pile up on the East Indies some more. Now back in Europe, I asked the Ottoman Empire if they were interested in peace, and they said they would do it if I gave them loads of money. The reason for this, of course, is that now we're at war with Poland, we don't really want to have to worry about the Ottomans, and the only reason I'd actually even consider going to peace, in truth, is that the Ottoman glitch seems to have gone away after I took Istanbul, meaning it's now possible to play the game with the Ottomans still existing. Now you can see I was negotiating with them there, and they kept coming back asking for 14,000. Maybe they're at negative 14,000 treasury and want to get back to break even. So I was thinking, should I accept this? It's about half of a turn's income. It just seemed like a large amount. But then thinking about it more, I realised the amount of money I'd have to spend to raise and sustain new armies to fight both the Ottomans and the Polish at the same time probably would actually amount to more than that in the long run. And it would be better to get some kind of peace deal and save the money, invest it in myself, and make loads of money later on with which we could crush the Ottomans at will. So I ended up making a compromise deal. I said I'll do it for 10,000, and they actually accepted that. So the war with the Ottomans comes to an end, a war which we've pretty roundly won. We've taken loads of their territory, about half of it, and their capital. Our forces in Ottoman territory are going to be teleported back to our own borders, so Voss, who was in their lands, are sneaking back. And interestingly, because I also got trade with them, it reveals some of their territory. You can see they actually did have an army here in Anatolia, so they could have put up some resistance, but not a huge deal. I also realised I forgot to take Jerusalem. I could have taken it and then asked for peace, but since it's worth literally 0, that's not going to make any practical difference to our nation anyway. So, with that war over, we're now ready to rush back to face Poland, which we'll be seeing next time. Poland-Lithuania felt forced to take action to stop the Dutch advance against the Ottomans. Left unattended, the Dutch were likely to conquer all of the Near East from under the nose of the increasingly powerless Sultan. But there was a disjoint between the thinking of their military leaders and their government officials. It was the latter that suddenly made a declaration of war, with the lack of a clear reason causing their allies to turn away from them and towards the Dutch. In protest, the military forces stationed on the Dutch border did not make any of the ordered attacks and instead marched inwards towards Warsaw, hoping to assert their authority. All the while, the Dutch were quietly returning from the Ottoman War. That's all for now. We'll face this new war with Poland, and there'll be a little bit of trouble in Amsterdam in the next episode of Sinews of War.